from the St. Mary's Seminary. What's the demographic for that section? This is all like 90% black, African American. And when you come over here, it's about 50-50. Coming up on your right is the Arena Playhouse, and the Arena Playhouse is the oldest continuously operated black theater in the country. Of course, there were earlier theaters, but this theater has been in operation since 1953, making it the oldest continuously operated black theater. We'll go to Office Street on the right. Sign to your right, he was the founder of the Arena Players. Projects after World War II.
Okay.
And you've probably seen these projects on The Wire. They use this as one of the locations for the HBO special The Wire.
That's all she wrote.
Coming up on your right is Booker T. Washington Middle School. This was formerly Booker T. Washington Junior High. Now this building was originally built as Weston High School, which was an all-girl white school. And when blacks moved into this neighborhood in 1926, Weston was relocated. Weston High School had more locations in Baltimore City than any other school. Because whenever African Americans moved in the neighborhood, the school would relocate, and this building was turned over to the Colored School Administration. Steps. Baltimore is known for its marble steps, and the marble comes from the local rock quarries that are located outside of Baltimore. North Avenue. North Avenue. To North Avenue, make a left, go to Pennsylvania Avenue. The middle class black community in West Baltimore. Now when you go a couple of blocks over, there is some gentrification and these houses are being restored. Just a couple of blocks away from Pennsylvania Avenue is Fulton Avenue, and that was a dividing line for African Americans in Baltimore City. No blacks lived west of Fulton Avenue until after World War II. And here on Pennsylvania Avenue, this is where the black businesses were located, black-owned businesses, and businesses that catered to African Americans. Black landmark, this is the Art Social Club, which was founded in 1912, making it the oldest black men's social club in the state of Maryland. And during the days of segregation, all along here were the black businesses. That's the Enoch Pratt Library on the corner, and back on your left, this is the health clinic, and it's named in honor of Dr. H. Maceo Williams, who was the first African American to head the health district in West Baltimore, so that building is named in his honor. But all along here where the black businesses and nightclubs were located. You know that Billie Holiday he lived here in Baltimore. Red Fox worked and performed here on Pennsylvania Avenue. Slappy White was from Baltimore. Pearl Bailey got her start here as a dancer. And so all along here were nightclubs and businesses. These new houses, these were recently built this year, part of the Nehemiah project that was started by Mayor Kurt Smoke. Now on your right, coming up on your right, this is the St. Peter Claver Church, and this is the first church built in America to the patron saint of slaves, who's St. Peter Claver. Also, the historic plaque that's located on the wall has a picture of Father Uncles, the first African-American priest in the United States. In terms of Catholicism, Baltimore has all of the first. Baltimore has the first black nuns, the Oblate Sisters. We have the first black priests, the Josephites, and the oldest black Catholic congregation, which is St. Francis Xavier, and that dates back to 1793. That used to be the Charm Center that was owned by Victorine Adams. She was one of the early African-American women elected to Baltimore City Council, but her husband, Willie Adams, at one time was the richest black man in Baltimore City. And she sold the New York fashions because African-Americans did not try to close on in downtown Baltimore. They shopped in her store. On your right, this is the Avenue Market, part of Baltimore's municipal market system. And during the days of segregation, it was called the Lafayette Market, and this is where African Americans in West Baltimore came to get the fresh produce. Now coming up on your left is the Shake and Bake Family Fun Center. This building was built by former Colt player, football player Glenn Dowdy. The building is now run by the city's Department of Park and Recreation. Now coming up on your left, the next block, 1500 block of Pennsylvania Avenue, this is where Willie Adams got his start. Willie Adams became rich off of the illegals numbers game, and today that game is called the Maryland State Lottery. Coming up on your left is the Provident Adult Daycare Center and the Provident Baptist Church. Its current pastor is Dr. Marcus Woods, who was the roommate of Dr. Martin Luther King when he attended the seminary. Now look to your right and you'll see the statue dedicated to Billie Holiday, the legendary jazz and blues singer. Now, Billie Holiday is supposed to be on a 6-foot pedestal, and that pedestal still remains in the city's warehouse. At the time, William Donald Schaefer was the mayor of Baltimore City, and he was opposed to the pedestal. The pedestal had the word strange fruit, the words to strange fruit on it, and it showed a child hanging from his mother's umbilical cord, and on the other side a man was hanging from a tree. So that pedestal was never placed up. Now look to your left, and you'll see the monument. This is the first monument in the world built to a building. This was the site of the Royal Theater. That was part of the Chitlin Circuit, and this is where Ray Charles and all the big black stars performed here at the Royal Theater. Now we'll get to the light you on the left. This recreation center is named in honor of Robert C. Marshall, one of the early black city council members, and the school that's located on both sides of the street is named in honor of Furman Templeton. Furman Templeton headed the NAACP for many years, and he was also a noted Baltimore attorney. Okay, once again on your right, these are the McCullough Home projects, and to your left is the historic Sharp Street Church coming up. Sharp Street Church dates back to 1802, and it moved to this location in 1898, and at the time it was the largest church for African Americans in Baltimore City. Now, what's so historic about the church is that Morgan State University got its start here at the Sharp Street Church in 1867 in the basement of the church as the Centenary Biblical Institute. And Utah Place was built to resemble the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And this is where the wealthy Baltimoreans lived in the late 1800s. So it was built for the wealthy people of Baltimore. And in back of these houses are alley streets made for the servants. Now this first mansion coming up on your right, this was the home of the Abel family that started the Baltimore Sun papers. And in the deed, it says that a black is never to live in this house like it is in most of the houses in this neighborhood. But the irony of the situation is now home to a black Masonic order, the Harlem Grand Lodge. So we're going to go on up. Now coming up on your left is a statue. This is dedicated to Francis Scott Key, and Hillary Clinton was here to rededicate this statue. That was one of her accomplishments as First Lady, was to restore landmarks throughout sites throughout the United States. Now on your right, this old synagogue, this is now home to the Prince Hall Masonic Lodge, and you're going to see Prince Hall in wax at the Great Blacks in Wax Museum. Now look across the street and you'll see the red double doors and a historic plaque on that home. And that was the house of Lily Curl Jackson, the mother of civil rights in Baltimore City. At one time, she had worked as a servant in that house, and she had a white friend that was able to purchase that house for her. In the basement, even the basements are marble. All apartment building, that's the Marlboro apartment, straight ahead. And that's where the Coen sisters lived, and they had the largest Matisse and Picasso collection that's now housed at the Baltimore Museum of Art. So that just gives you an idea of the type of people that lived in this neighborhood. Now, this school coming up on your right is the Utah Marshburn School, named in honor of Teresa Marshburn, the black crossing guard who died on this corner trying to save a child's life. And so the school was rededicated to her. Now, coming up on your left is the Monumental Lodge number 3, the oldest Black Elks building in the United States. Straight up in the direction. Baptist Church, this congregation dates back to 1888, and they moved to this location in 1920. Two of his most famous pastors were Reverend Diggs and Dr. Waller. Both were founders of the Niagara movement, which eventually became the NAACP. Notice the yellow sign on the lamppost, Marble Hill, a historic neighborhood. This neighborhood has been designated historic by the Baltimore City Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation because all of the famous African Americans that lived in this neighborhood. Thurgood Marshall grew up in this neighborhood. On your left, this park is named in honor of Henry Holland Garnett, a famous orator for the state of Maryland. And coming up on your right is Bethel Church. This congregation dates back to 1795. And on your left is the Union Baptist Church. Congregation dates back to 1854. Now, Taylor School, and that was the first new school built for African Americans in Baltimore City. That building dates back to 1926, and it was the first new school for African Americans. All the other schools blacks moved in to after whites moved out of the neighborhood. And of course, this boulevard is named in honor of Martin Luther King. This is the Career Center at Briscoe, named in honor of Joseph Briscoe, who was the father of vocational education during the Colored School Administration. Right. There are 26 schools in Baltimore named after African Americans. This is Joseph Briscoe. The school is named in honor of Joseph Briscoe, the father of vocational education during the Colored School Administration. And there are 26 schools in Baltimore City named in honor of African Americans. And so when we get to our next stop, they're going to make reference to this seminary because that's where the Chapelle Basse is located, which means basement chapel in French, and that's where the early black Catholics worship. On this corner, with the keep straight, where the landmark apartments are located, this was the site of the Afro-American newspaper. This building was the former site of Baltimore City College, which was a public high school. But one of the top high schools has now been renovated for apartments. Now we're entering Baltimore's cultural district. The buildings on your left, these are owned by the Baltimore Historical Society. And coming up on your left is the Maryland Historical Society's Contemporary Museum. And they have a wonderful Egyptian collection. And as we pass this intersection, you'll see the first monument built as a tribute to George Washington. You'll see the Johns Hopkins Hospital, the greatest hospital in the world. And on your right is the Baltimore Sun Papers building. Baltimore now only has one daily publication, and that's the Baltimore Sun. Stay in this lane and walk around. Back landmark coming up on your right is the Baltimore City Jail and State Penitentiary. It's unfortunate that most of the residents are African Americans. Coming up is our next stop. This is the St. Francis Academy. The school was started in 1828, making it the oldest continuously operating black educational institution in the United States. Our tour guide today, Sister Matt.
Welcome to St. Francis Academy. I'm Sister Madeline, Magdalene Ordinary sister, historically connected to the Ave sisters, whose property we are on right now. I work in the Mother Lang office. Mother Lang started as Elizabeth Clarice Lang. She came from Haiti. There were persecutions going on, revolts going on in Haiti, so her family left. She was a well-educated person. And they had some needs. So they came by way of Cuba, and then we believe Philadelphia, but for some reason, Mary Lang came down here, to Baltimore. We don't know why exactly. There is proof that she stopped in these other places. In 1828, she began a school in her own home and had the help of other educated women, two of them primarily, and they began teaching. That's the origins of St. Francis Academy. You came through the door, those doors Mother Lang came through. She lived, worked, and died here. We have a room upstairs that's preserved where she used to sleep and where she died. I have some flyers that say something about that too, and I'll give them out later. Let's see. Mary Lang noticed the children of color were not being taught. So we know why. the prejudice and racism of that era. And she, began teaching these children, they're smokers, mostly girls at the time. And one of her older students was Almeida. So in 1829, her two assistants, and Almeida, her oldest student, and herself, were guided by Father Joubert, a Sulpician father, and he had advised them they had expressed an interest in religious life, but they were not able to enter any of the other communities, which were Caucasian and European. So he advised them to form their own community, which they did. And Almeida stayed for 16 years, and then when it looked as if the Almaids were going to fold up, She had been invited by a Redemptorist priest to go to Michigan. So she went up, she and another sister, Charlotte, went up there, and they founded the IHS Sisters. But we would not exist if it weren't for Mother Lang having taught Teresa, who became Teresa, not me, who became Teresa. So, as you can see, all of this around here. Now, down the long hall, there are artifacts and pictures and things of the school as it progressed. In about 1974, it became a co-ed school and no longer a boarding school. So you see different pictures there. You will see a progression of the habit that the sisters wore. The first one was one with, oh, you're perfect. This is Sister Julia. Sister Julia is an Adelaide sister, later Providence. And she said she would come and wear the habit of the foundation. And that was the habit until about 1906, where they changed to one with a very long veil and all of that. Again, they wore this habit because of the racism. They were very antagonized and even persecuted. There were a lot of people who did not think that women of color could be religious. And so they were subject to many degradations because of their choosing this state of life. But they persevered and went on. And upstairs, we're going to see part of piece of a video that will tell you about St. Francis. And then upstairs, the Mother Lang room, the display up there. Okay?
Before we go, or perhaps, I'm sorry, I'm Kristen, I'm with Tom from the Baltimore Area Convention and Visitors Association. Can you tell us a little bit more about the school and the process for enrollment and the success rate that you all enjoy?
Well, there are about I think this year there are about 330 students. About 90% of them get accepted into college when they leave. If anyone is interested in St. Francis Academy, they simply call to make it, to go through the registration process, to meet the principal and have an interview. And really the most basic qualification is that the student wants to be here. What their academics are, they like to take them where they're at and work from there. So,
is there a cost associated?
Yes, there's a tuition. This coming year will be $6,300 per year, and it's that's the lowest in the Archdiocese of Baltimore. So, anything else?
Just wanted everybody else to hear it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thanks. All right.
Douglass learned to read and write. Then when Frederick Douglass became of age, he was sent back to the Eastern Shore where he was seasoned as a field slave. And then he came to Baltimore as an adult, and he was hired out to the shipyards. Frederick Douglass met a woman by the name of Anna Murray. He married her, and prior to the marriage, she sold her feather bed to give him money so that he was able to escape. Okay, we're going to stop right here. After Frederick Douglass became a wealthy man, he went to New York, started the North Star, became a famous abolitionist. Then he went to D.C. in later years and became the Register of Wills. And he came back to this area that he had been a slave, and he built these 5 houses for the people. And so if you look up in the brick, you will see Douglass Place. And these 5 houses, starting with this one, with the historic plaque, these were built by Frederick Douglass. So let's get off the bus, and I want you to meet one of the descendants of Frederick Douglass who's going to join us today. Frederick Douglass It's the full. My great-great-grandfather. Oh, that's okay. Because he was concerned for fair housing, because he was concerned about housing that those sex slaves would have after slavery. I could give you a lecture going on, but if you have some questions, it might be easier. Just ask me your questions, and I'll be glad to respond to them. No questions?
It doesn't.
I know.
About his life in Baltimore, his years here.
What year were these homes built?
Well, these were built around 1890. He never lived in the house.
Did not live.
Built it as an investment. He also built some houses in Washington as an investment. Family knows. But this was his concern for affordable housing.
Are there any family stories that you have to tell about your great-great-great-grandfather?
My great-great-grandfather,
Okay,
yes.
giving family stories that were passed down in the family that maybe weren't, commonly known about.
Well, I think most of the stories that we've passed down more and more have to do with how much abuse that he had to take. He really didn't talk about the personal abuse that he had to take, but many times when he made speeches, he was actually attacked. At Faneuil Hall in Boston, he was attacked, or many times when he'd be walking down the street with someone like William Lloyd Garrison or Susan B. Anthony. He really took a lot of personal abuse. Had feces thrown at him, he was hit with stones, with sticks. You would think that he just suffered his abuse in slavery.
It's an American story. See, people always want to make it just a Black history story, but it's not. It's an American story, and we build bridges while we're out there, because we're with audiences that are of all races, creeds, colors, and religions and everything. And we really feel that we have an obligation to actually let people understand that it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Black, whether you're white. We want you to understand that this is a pain that we have to face. If we don't put it on the table, we're never going to understand each other. There are things that happen to white people that they're suffering from. There's many things, the degrading, ugly things that happen to African Americans that young people don't always understand. But in order for us to get the laws of karma and God to bless America the way it really should be blessed, then we have to put this thing on the table and look at it. And we like to heal. We go to America, Africa. We want to heal the wounds between African Americans and Black Africans. But just build bridges. That's
Right.